Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Football Frenzy Playoff Edition Part 2. As always, I'm Paul Valley, and with me as always, Adam Roth.
What's going on, boys?
Thanks for tuning into the show today.
And
as
girls.
everybody knows, hopefully boys and girls.
Hopefully.
As everybody knows, Tennessee Titans beat the New England Patriots last weekend in the wild card round to advance to the divisional round. They're coming to the bank in Baltimore to face the Ravens on Saturday. We're going to talk about that at length in just a little bit.
Yes.
But we don't want to exclude the NFC because if the Ravens make it to the Super Bowl, they have to play an NFC team. So we're going to talk about that first just to get it out there and get it over with. Saints lose to the Vikings, and that was almost my lock for the playoffs because the Saints were beaten on the Minnesota Miracle 2 years ago in the playoffs.
Yes.
They got eliminated from the playoffs in the NFC Championship game last year on a bogus pass interference call.
Yes.
I thought they'd be out for blood, and they lose to the Vikings in overtime, 26-20. What are your thoughts on that game?
The Saints were my Super Bowl pick out of the NFC.
Me too.
They had, to be eliminated the way they were the last 2 years in the playoffs, I thought for sure they were going to make that run, make it to the Super Bowl this year. It was just they played a bad game all the way around.
They did.
Defensively, they could not. And we mentioned this last week. I talked about it. Dalvin Cook was going to have a very good game for Minnesota to have any chance. Dalvin Cook had himself a very good game last week. He pushed the envelope running the ball. He was effective when they needed to be. Kirk Cousins made some very big plays, which is un-Kirk Cousins-like. The Saints defense there was no pass rush all game. I mean, I really don't have the answers for how they just fumbled away another opportunity in a playoff game.
At home, it's like they didn't show up. That wasn't the Saints team that we're accustomed to seeing. And like you said, Kirk Cousins did something he doesn't do, and that's win critical games. And he made two big plays to Adam Thielen. You look in the third quarter. I'm sorry, in the second quarter. It's 3rd and 9. He throws a long pass for 34 yards to Thielen. And I'm sorry, it was the third quarter that leads to a touchdown.
Yep.
Then in overtime, he hits Thielen for 43 yards down to the 2-yard line. Mm-hmm. You're letting Kirk Cousins, who chokes under pressure, come into your house and beat you and knock you out of the playoffs.
That was super unexpected. I mean, you look at the breakdown of the game. I mean, numbers aside, Drew Brees was awful. He was awful the entire game.
Yeah, he did not have a good game.
The offense, the whole offense themselves. If it wasn't for Taysom Hill, that would have been an absolute blowout by Minnesota in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Taysom Hill just showed out on multiple big plays. He completed a 50-yard pass. He caught a touchdown pass. He had, 20 plus rushing yards. The dude was unstoppable. The Minnesota defense didn't want to tackle him. Mm-hmm. He couldn't be tackled by them. And without his big plays, that game is not even as close as it was.
Taysom Hill was their leading rusher.
It was just bad. Yeah, what's happened to Alvin Kamara? I know what's happened to him. Mark Ingram's no longer there.
Yep. And they can gear up for him.
You take a big player that means a lot to a locker room. Now, locker room guys aren't everything. You got to be able to produce. Mark Ingram produced, but that locker room, that camaraderie leaves that locker room and it comes over to the Ravens locker room. They're missing something. We gained something. So, does that have a little bit of a role in it? Maybe, maybe not. It's speculation on my part, but he did not look the same this year.
Well, with Ingram, you have a guy who hits the hole and runs downhill. Whereas with Kamara, this is a guy, he's like a scat back, right? He's got super speed. He's elusive. You know what I mean? But
great balance.
He's a change of pace kind of guy, kind of like what we envisioned for Justice Hill.
Yes.
But on a higher level, right? So it's one of those things where now that you take Ingram out of that, they only have to gear up to stop one guy, not two.
Well, they thought they were going to get that replacement in a lesser of a Latavius Murray. He's a decent back, but I don't know. I think the effect on the overall well-being of that offensive backfield maybe took something out of the, not the game day preparation per se, but during the week preparation. Picking stuff out in defenses that Mark Ingram sees, relays to Alvin Kamara, but then without Mark Ingram there, maybe they're not seeing the same stuff, and it's not helping him as much as it was. So I don't. Maybe he bounces back next year, but it was just a bad game offensively for them.
A bad year for Kamara all the way around,
Good
considering
Lord.
the expectations. Now,
Terrible.
the big play in that game was a touchdown to Kyle Rudolph in overtime. He clearly pushed off.
Yes.
Clearly. Got both arms extended. You saw the defensive back, who's significantly smaller, bent backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Catches a touchdown pass pretty easily. Game over. Vikings advance. Saints pack up their bags and all go to their respective homes. How do you feel about that penalty that wasn't called? Is this the same thing as last year where they didn't call it defensive pass interference, or is it just sour grapes and you're going to look for excuses?
Let's look. Most people are going to say they're going to look for sour grapes and say, well, just stop complaining. I mean, we can go back, make that field goal at the end of the half.
Mm-hmm. Let's miss the 43-yarder.
You know, make that field goal, and maybe you won the game anyway already. I mean, they played a bad game all the way around, but they were still in position to win. Is it as bad as that defensive pass interference from the NFC Championship Game last year? No, not even close. Because that wasn't just defensive pass interference. That was unnecessary roughness leading with the helmet. I mean, there was a couple of calls they could have called on that one last year against the Rams. But It was, in my opinion, yes, pass interference. Do I understand why they don't throw the flag? Yes. Do I understand that it's not going to be turned over? Well, of course, because we saw it all season. They weren't going to return and stuff like that. So, especially in that situation with the Saints, the ones who were moaning and crying all year about this stuff, they definitely weren't going to give them the call.
Oh, yeah, they're the reason for the headache all year long.
And it's not going to be here next year, I can guarantee you that.
I had no issue with the non-call. Was it offensive pass interference?
Yeah.
Probably. But how often do they call offensive pass interference? And at that point in the game, you let them play the game.
Yep.
Right? And that's what they did. The Saints came out on the other end. If you wanted to win that football game, you should have won the football game.
And this goes out to all the people thinking, hey, the Saints should still have another chance to touch the ball. No, stop them.
Your chance to touch the ball, so stop them on defense.
All you got to do is stop them. Don't give up that deep pass play to Thielen.
Right.
I mean, all you got to do is make that play, and, hey, maybe you get a chance to go score. So that's on you.
Well, and then you move to the other game, the Eagles and Seahawks. And thank the good Lord above.
I was really kind of rooting for the Eagles in that
one.
The
Seahawks won that game. I was like, I'm watching that game, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to eat a ghost pepper. But, look, the Eagles just didn't have enough.
No.
Right? They just didn't. They were so injured. Carson Wentz leaves in halfway through the first quarter, never comes back with a concussion, probably targeting.
That's a dirty play.
It's a dirty play.
That's a dirty
play.
Play.
When I first saw it, I was like, oh, he was falling. And then every time I saw it after, I was like, no, that was pretty intentional. So you look at that, the Seahawks are banged up too. Right? They're banged up. Their offensive line isn't great. Their defensive line isn't great. They only had 28 sacks in the entire regular season. They got to the quarterback a lot the other day in that wild card game.
Yes.
But they're not great on either side of the ball. Russell Wilson is a game changer for them, but they had their top two running backs out. So you have this guy, Homer, who's their leading running back, and then you have Marshawn Lynch.
Actually, their top three. Because you had Carson, Penny, and Persice.
Oh,
that's their top three. So they were down to their fourth string and signing Marshawn Lynch off the.
Who hadn't played in 14 months.
Off the streets, who's been eating Skittles the whole season.
And Lynch, 6 carries, 7 yards. He had a touchdown. He had a 23-yard reception in the game too. He's there to be your goal line back at this point. That's what he's there for. He scored in each of his 2 games. He's punching the ball in, and it was a beastly run that got him into the end zone where he got that second push and got in. We expected the Seahawks to win. They won. And this is going to lead me to my segment of shade. And this week, giving my segment of shade to myself. The shade is to myself because I was all over Twitter. Now look, I had an indoor baseball game on Sunday, so I recorded both games and I watched them later. So I was way late to the party on this.
Yes.
And I was all over Twitter saying Carson Wentz is soft. The Eagles need to move on from him. He can't stay healthy. And my shade is, it was a head injury. It was a dirty play. It was targeting. And I apologize to the Eagles, their fans, Carson Wentz. Not that any of them are paying attention to me. But I apologize. I was wrong to call the man soft because anybody could have left the game in that situation. Probably would have. And you can't, with CTE and head injuries being what they are, you can't bring somebody back in the game even if it is the playoffs. I get it. And I was wrong to say that. However, I will say, I think Carson Wentz needs to have a short leash. I think that next year should be prove it to me, or we got to start looking elsewhere. Because they have played in his career, he's been in the league 4 years. They've been to the playoffs 3 straight years. They have played 6 playoff games. In 3 years. He has played half of 1 quarter out of a potential 24 postseason quarters in his career. Whether it's a head injury, an ankle injury, a shoulder injury, a knee injury, a back injury, if you can't stay on the field as my franchise quarterback, you can't lead my team. And I got to look elsewhere because I have to find productivity out of the quarterback position. When we need you the most, you're not there.
Gotta have
and that's my point when I said he was soft. He's not soft, but you got to stay on the field.
Not for that injury, but through the course of your career, he's shown he has not been a durable enough player at the quarterback position in the NFL. And some people just aren't physically built to handle the NFL. College is one thing. NFL is completely different. So they had so many injuries this year too. So I guess you could kind of get. I mean, he lost his top 3 receivers.
Lost his top 2 running backs for a point.
Pulling their guys off the streets and signing dudes that were quarterbacks in college, and they're going to be their top receiver. Greg Ward Jr. was their top receiver in the last few weeks of the season. I mean, I get they're missing two of their top offensive linemen. You know? So, I mean, I get it. Maybe if everybody's healthy next year, and let's see what happens, and they get that defensive secondary fixed because their front 4 is fantastic. Fletcher Cox is a man among boys. I mean, he was wrecking that game by himself as much as he possibly could. But the man can only do so much. He can't cover the back end too. I mean, he couldn't stop DK Metcalf himself, who shells out in his first time in the playoffs, the best rookie debut in the playoffs in the history of the NFL.
Oh, he went off.
I mean, and we'll see what happens with the Eagles next year. They've got the talent. They just got to fix a couple of things, and hopefully Carson stays healthy for them. But we'll see what happens. They always seem to be getting injured.
Well, exactly. And Carson Wentz, he's a damn good quarterback. I'm not taking anything away from his talent and his skill level.
He was an MVP a couple years ago.
Exactly. I think that this is a guy that if he stays healthy, they're a Super Bowl contender.
Yes.
Along with because he played all 16 regular season games this year. Not to take that away from him, but he got hurt in the playoffs. He's missed the playoffs each of the last 3 years for that team. He's got to prove that he can stay on the field when it matters most, but he also needs some help. He needs that team to stay healthy. He needs more wide receivers. Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar, they aren't going to cut it.
That's what matters.
And, Miles Sanders is a good quarterback, but I think a good running back, but I think that could be another instance like an Alvin Kamara thing. I think they need someone to complement him, and Jordan Howard getting hurt them.
Yeah, it definitely hurt big time.
And we're gonna get to your segment of Shade here in just a moment. Yep. I just want to put a cap on this NFC thing now. Yep. You have the Vikings going to play San Francisco. Do they have another upset special in their back pocket, or is it going to be too much for them to handle when you got the Niners going to the NFC Championship game?
I don't see how that Niners defense lets Kirk Cousins breathe.
Yeah.
The Saints did not get any pressure on Kirk Cousins. Very, very minimal. All game last weekend. I don't see how between that front 4 that, for one, I don't think Dalvin Cook's going to be running the ball all over the place.
Yeah, he certainly probably won't get 28 carries in that game.
So, and if you stop Dalvin Cook and you force Kirk Cousins to have to throw the ball 40 times plus against that pass rush in San Francisco, I see a blowout happening. Not because I think San Francisco's offense is that good, because Minnesota's defense can play well, but between the defense, maybe getting a couple of short fields for Garoppolo and company, hitting a couple of big plays here or there, just enough to extend that score, I see at least a 14-point victory for the 49ers.
Well, the 49ers are going to be keying in on Dalvin Cook. He's their number 1 assignment this coming week.
Yep.
For the Vikings to be successful, I think Thielen and Diggs are going to have to go off. Yeah. I think Kirk Cousins is going to have to play mistake-free football, which I don't see happening against that Niners defense. And Niners defense, through the first 11 weeks, was just running roughshod on the league, getting after the quarterback. Very pedestrian the last 7 weeks of the year as far as getting to the quarterback. Those numbers went down significantly. So we'll see what happens any given Sunday or Saturday, for that matter, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think the Vikings stand much of a chance, but hey, I thought the Saints were going to work them too.
Here's where I think that week off helps that pass rush for San Francisco. Get some healthy legs, get a little fresher, the healthy legs for one extra week off, that'll help big time for that pass rush.
Nothing like a little home cooking.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, and then you have you got the Seahawks going to Green Bay.
Gonna be cold.
Going to be cold. I think the Seahawks are too banged up in their running game. I think that team is Russell Wilson and not much else. Although DK Metcalf did show out.
Yes.
I think that the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, every year that the Packers make the playoffs, I say Aaron Rodgers is a different breed of quarterback, and that guy's going to get them into the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, one of the two. I think that he's got something for the Seahawks, and I think that he's leading the Packers into the NFC Championship.
Yes, I think the Packers pull this one out. Defensively, I don't think the Seahawks have enough to stop Aaron Jones. Big play after big play out of the running game, out of the backfield himself. And that Packer front four, that pass rush. Preston Smith and a good old Raven Zadarius Smith from the past. I mean, I think they're going to be hounding Russell all day and all night. So I foresee a little closer of a game because Russell Wilson is just that kind of competitor.
He keeps them in
and
games.
He will keep them as close as humanly possible. But between a 7 and 10 point victory for the Packers this weekend, I don't see how Seattle pulls this one out. I mean, now I could be wrong. I give Seattle a better chance than I give Minnesota, but Green Bay, when it's going to be the frozen damn tundra up there because, game time, they're saying like 24 degrees. And by the end of that game, it's going to be in the teens. So, good luck.
Well, and a lot of people have been saying they think that the Packers are maybe the biggest overachieving team in the NFL this year, maybe the worst 13-3 team they've seen. I look at the Seahawks as the most overachieving team in the NFL this year. That's a team that played 10, 11,
live or die
games.
by last plays.
Last plays had to help them beat the Bengals amongst other teams. They played a really good team in the Ravens and they got embarrassed at home. I think that the Seahawks are really overachievers, and the Packers are going to bring them back down to earth.
Although Seattle is very good on the road.
Yeah,
7-1 in the regular season,
4-4 at home. You're right.
1-0 in the postseason so far. So,
but the frozen tundra,
that's a different
in the
animal.
Playoffs,
Up there,
different
yeah.
animal.
Yeah.
Different animal. Now look, you know what? We're going to hold off on your segment of shade just for a moment. We're going to segue into that pretty nicely, I think. What we're going to talk about right now: Texans beat the Bills last week. Now the Bills, talk about a team playing over your head. Josh Allen played the game of his life in the first half of that football game. They had no answer for him.
He was lights out.
92 yards rushing. What was it? 264 yards passing. He had a receiving touchdown. They had no answer for Josh Allen. And the Texans found themselves down 16-0 midway through the third quarter before J.J. Watt gets a big sack in the red zone, turns that game around.
Yeah.
Now, Deshaun Watson, he had himself, 242 yards or something like that. He had a touchdown. He had a rushing touchdown, a monstrous 20-yard touchdown run followed by a 2-point conversion that he ran it in for. He carried 3 guys on his back the last 5 yards of that touchdown run. Got him on the board, made a 1-score game, 16-8. What happened to the Bills in the second half?
Tight. They got tight. You got to especially defensively. Now, a lot offensively too, because Josh Allen, second-year quarterback, but defensively, a lot of their stars, a lot of their big players, Tre'Davious White, they're all young guys. They don't know what it is to compete and to win in the playoffs. You start getting closer to that fourth quarter, you're winning, you're like, oh, and then something bad happens. Everything was going right. I mean, you couldn't have scripted it any better for the Buffalo Bills.
Absolutely.
You come out, you jump down their throat, you're getting after them defensively, you're shutting them down all over the field, you're making big plays. You get closer to that fourth quarter, you're creeping closer to the end of the game, and then it starts hitting you, and then something bad happens, and then something else bad happens, and then before you know it, it's a snowball effect, and then you start losing your bearings, you basically forget how to tackle. I don't know how the hell they missed all those tackles they missed in that fourth quarter alone was atrocious to me.
The one play where Watson, we have to talk about that play. He's got 2 guys about to spear him, and he spins off both of them, and ends up throwing a 23-yard play.
How do you not tackle that man there?
How do you not tackle anybody there?
I understand that Deshaun Watson is a hell of an athlete. I get that. And, I would expect Lamar to get out of that position too. But when you get hit that way, there's no way you can let that man stand on his 2 feet. You can't. You cannot let him happen.
You've got 2 cars coming at him, and it's like he didn't even get touched. He just spun right off of him and makes a big play to keep the drive alive.
The one guy hits him, and the other guy hits him back upright to spin him around so he can just roll out of the pocket.
It was an absolutely insane play. Oof. I think as much luck as skill in that play. But I have to look. It's like you said, the Bills got tight. It looked like they stopped playing to win and started playing not to lose. Yep. That's how they started playing. They started playing that game after that touchdown by Watson. Josh Allen, as well as he played the first 2.5 quarters, is how poorly he played in the fourth quarter. He had back-to-back play. They are in field goal range. They make a field goal on that drive in the fourth quarter. They win the football game. Yes. They're going on to play this weekend. Instead, he takes a 14-yard loss where he's about to get sacked and gets called for intentional grounding, loses a down, loses 14 yards, and then on the next play, he gets sacked on 4th down and loses 19 yards. And then they stop the Texans, right? They stop the Texans, and then they're coming down the field again, and Josh Allen has a 20-yard run, and then inexplicably tries to lateral a ball to a lineman. What are you doing?
He lost his marbles.
That was a game where you watched a young quarterback succumb to the pressure and crumble before your very eyes. It was amazing how well he played that first half of that game and how poorly he played in that fourth quarter.
That was stunning. When I was watching that live, I'm sitting there. It's like, I understand you're trying to go down to get the tying field goal, but there was over a minute left in the game. You're almost at midfield with this run. What are you doing pitching the ball back? It's not 14 seconds left.
To a lineman.
You have over 1 minute. And he's lucky that he batted the ball backwards out of bounds, because if he had batted it forwards, it would have been a penalty. So, for what ungodly reason he decided to do whatever he did, that's exactly what NFL playoff pressure will do to somebody who's not ready for it. You saw exactly what will happen to you. Josh Allen showed exactly what will happen to a player.
That's a guy
just completely lost his complete composure to how to play football the correct way.
That's a guy who saw a 16-0 second half lead slipping right through his fingers, and he panicked.
He did.
He absolutely panicked.
Big time.
It's a lineman. Where is he going to go? He's going to get, an extra yard? If that, it's not worth it. Just one of the dumbest plays I have ever seen in my entire life. And I've watched Ravens teams where all Ed Reed would do was lateral for 4 years.
You expected that one.
But, moving on, the biggest upset of the week. And we thought it could happen. I didn't think it would because of the pedigree. But the Titans upset the Patriots 20-13. They're up 14-13 with about 9 seconds left in the game. And Tom Brady's last.
I think it was 15 seconds left at the 4-yard line or whatever.
They were inside the 5.
Something like that.
And Tom Brady from his own end zone throws a pass that gets tipped, picked off for a pick 6. His last pass of 2019 returned for a pick 6. What could have been the last pass of his career, it's not.
It's his last pass as a New England Patriot, though.
Ooh, I'd like to hear this. We're going to take a little bit of a swerve here. What?
That's his last pass as a New England Patriot.
Where do you think he's going?
I'm calling it here right now. He's not retiring. He alluded to that in his post-game presser.
Mm-hmm.
He said,
likely.
Probably not. As much as a competitor as Tom Brady is, there's no way in hell he's going to go out and his last pass is going to be a tipped interception pick 6 in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way that's happening. That's not happening. As to where he's going to go, San Diego could use a quarterback for a couple years because I think they're moving on from Phillip Rivers.
A lot of people think that Phillip Rivers, he could flip-flop places.
I don't know that Belichick would take Phillip Rivers. I would see Belichick taking a chance on maybe a Cam Newton to hold over and draft somebody, but you got the Chargers moving into that brand new stadium. Their second fiddle to the Rams out there in Los Angeles. They need an eye catcher. They had a lot of injuries this season that derailed them. But that ultimate competitor of Tom Brady, he's got some weapons there in San Diego, Los Angeles, something he did not have this past season in New England. You got one of the top 10 receivers in football, Keenan Allen. You got Hunter Henry. You got Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler in the backfield. You can run the ball. You can pass the ball. And you got a very young defense that has studs all over it. Don't be surprised it doesn't wind up in Los Angeles playing for the Chargers.
Well, and he did say in his, what some people call cryptic Instagram post,
yeah.
He said, I still have something left to prove.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Brady has nothing left to prove. He's won 6 Super Bowls. He has nothing left to prove, except that he can win without Bill Belichick.
Well, Belichick wants to do the same thing. He was trying to do that a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to trade Jimmy Garoppolo.
He
had a better offer from Cleveland than he did from San Francisco when he traded him. He wanted to move on. He was tired of being, well, Belichick, you're great, but you have Tom Brady. Tom Brady, you're great, but you have Bill Belichick. As much as an ego these two men possess, as great as they are, they want to prove they can do it without the other one. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So I do not expect him to be back in a Patriots uniform. But he will be playing next year.
You're hearing it here first. We'll see if you're right. I think that makes for the top storyline in the 2020 season if Tom Brady moves away from the New England Patriots.
Yes.
Getting back to that Patriots-Titans game where the Patriots again lost 20-13 to welcome the Tennessee Titans into Baltimore at the Bank this coming Saturday, 8:15 p.m. Again, we'll get to that here in just a minute.
Yes.
Derrick Henry, NFL's leading rusher. Week 17, 32 carries, 211 yards, 3 touchdowns to capture that NFL rushing title away from Nick Chubb. Yes. Then they give him the ball 34 times. You're talking 66 carries in 2 weeks for 400 yards rushing. He goes off for 182 yards rushing and a touchdown against the Patriots. Puts that team on his back.
Yep.
Ryan Tannehill, NFL's leading rated passer. 8 of 15 for 72 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Can they do that? You know what? I'm not going to ask, can they do that against Baltimore? Because we're not there yet. That's you know what? We're there. You know what? We're there. I lost my train of thought. Screw it. We're there.
Did we want to talk about the other matchup in the divisional round for the AFC real quick before we really dive into this Texans-Ravens matchup?
That's where I was going. Thank you. This is why we have co-hosts.
Let's get into this Kansas City-Houston Texans matchup.
That's right.
Let's get into that.
Thank you. Thank you for getting me back on track.
We both want to chomp at the bit for this Titans-Ravens game. We really
Not
do.
to mention I'm planning a wedding right now.
Yeah,
and
he's all
my
over
brain's
the place.
scatterbrained after everything that happened today with venues and whatnot.
Hey,
so my apologies. All right, so you got the Texans and the Chiefs. The Chiefs in Week 16 went to Houston. Week 6 went to Houston, and they lost 31-24. Mahomes had 278 yards passing. He had 3 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Yeah.
You look on the other side of the field, Watson, 280 yards passing, a touchdown, 2 picks. But he also ran the ball for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yes.
Is this something that the Texans can replicate in Arrowhead with the AFC Championship game on the line?
I doubt it.
I doubt it too.
I doubt it. Now, Kansas City's defense is not Buffalo's defense. They do not have the corners to cover as well as a Tre'Davious White can for the Bills. You know, they had Tyrann Mathieu out there in safety land, but he can't cover DeAndre Hopkins. If Will Fuller happens to get healthy, just say he's healthy for a game, this game, and he can provide that deep threat. That provides a different element that's going to stretch the field and take Matthew out of being able to shadow over top of DeAndre Hopkins. So, yeah, I don't see it happening, but I'm not going to put anything past Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, and that offense because they have the firepower to go up against, and they showed it, but it's a different animal on Arrowhead. It is the loudest, craziest damn stadium in the NFL. Bar none. By far.
That probably doesn't pump the noise in like Seattle.
They do not pump noise in, artificial noise like Seattle does. They are just crazy Midwestern people who love their football team, and they show it.
Absolutely, and here's the key to that win for the Texans back in Week 6. The Texans ran for 192 yards. They kept that Kansas City offense off the field. Hyde had 116 yards and a touchdown. We talked about Watson, 42 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kansas City, on the other hand, had 11 carries for 53 yards. They just couldn't. They could run the ball, but they didn't because they're playing from behind because they didn't have as much time on the field because the Texans ran all up and down the field on them.
Kansas City has shown flashes defensively that says, "Man, where's this defense all the time?" Yeah, they get after the rush. They get after the quarterback. They cover well on the back end. You get a team down, you can just set the dogs loose and just chase the quarterback all day. Then you're in good position. But sometimes they're just absent-minded. They leave wide-open receivers all over the field. They give up big runs in the most inopportune times. I don't understand what they're doing over there defensively. And I'm pretty sure their own defensive coaches are sitting there like, guys, why the hell isn't this the norm and not an aberration every now and then? Because this is why people don't believe in our defense. Because you don't present the same effort or the same accountability every single week in and week out playing defensively because, Patrick Mahomes is there. We don't have to play that well because he'll save us. Sooner or later, it bites you in the rear end. And it could happen. I don't see it happening, but it could happen.
Well, I got the Chiefs winning this game in kind of a shootout. I think ultimately they'll win the game, but I think it's going to be closer than a lot of people would think. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're going to win this game 31-27. I
think both teams get in the 30s. I think it's more of a 35-31 type affair.
Gotcha. So we're both predicting 4-point wins for the Chiefs, but close game throughout. Should be exciting. All 4 playoff games in the wild card round were one-possession games that came down to the wire.
Yes.
We're expecting more of the same, at least in that first AFC game in the divisional round.
Yes.
But now that I'm not ahead of myself, we can move on to that Ravens-Titans game. And before we move on to that game, now it's time for Adam's segment of Shade here, because this fits in nicely with what we're going to talk about.
So, readily willing to admit, Paul walks in and asks me, what's your segment of Shade? I really hadn't thought of one all day until I was just sitting on my couch not too long ago, about 45 minutes ago, and was scrolling through Twitter and saw what Nick Wright had said. I believe it was this morning, or was it yesterday morning? I think it was this morning.
It was today.
Talking about how he does not believe that Lamar is going to be as dominant in the playoffs as he was in the regular season. Which is to say, he was very dominant in the regular season. I can understand somebody saying, I don't think he's going to be as dominant because it's stiffer competition on a week-in, week-out basis. I get it. I can understand that. But his reasoning behind his argument, he presents, you look at the 2 games that he struggled in, the Bills game and the Niners game. Well, forgive me, I was at the 49ers game at home. It was a monsoon, it was cold, it was nasty, it was disgusting out. He only threw for a little over 100 yards.
Ran for over
100. Had some issues here or there. The offense was not as prolific, but again, elements and probably the best defense in football at the time. And then the Bills game in Buffalo, New York, cold, windy, another very, very good defense, top 5 defense. Struggled passing the ball again. Yardage-wise, did not run the ball very, very well himself. The team themselves ran the ball well. He did not. Still threw 3 touchdown passes. Mm-hmm. So he says, well, he can't throw outside the numbers. I want them to stop the run and tell them to beat us throwing outside the numbers. Really? You want to stack the box and tell him to beat you throwing outside the numbers? Okay. I'll take it. All day. Marquise. Go long.
And that's
gone.
That's going to open up. It's going to open up.
Forget about it. Because you're giving up big play after big play after big play outside the numbers. I'm sorry. We are going to absolutely kill you. And let's not forget, the Ravens, who's the Tennessee Titans defensive coordinator?
Dean Pease.
Dean Pease. What was us Ravens fans' biggest pet peeve for Dean Pease coach defense that was always very, very good. What was the one thing they always struggled doing?
I'm going to let you answer your own question.
Cover the damn tight end. Couldn't cover the tight end.
26th against tight ends this year, the Tennessee Titans.
We have three. Three that could start for any other team in the NFL. And you're telling me that you want Lamar to throw the ball the whole time? Okay, I'll take it. If Lamar has the same game he had against Miami, week 1 of this season, because he says, you know what, I'm not going to run the ball. I'm just going to throw it all over the yard. Okay. Then you're going to see exactly what happened week 1. And I'm going to tell you that right now. If they stop him from running the ball, he's just going to go over the top, over the top, over the top. It's going to be over 300-yard pass a day and 5 touchdowns. And it's going to be a massive blowout.
I think it's going to be a massive blowout regardless. But let's look at the numbers.
Let's dive into this.
Let's look at the numbers here. You got Derrick Henry, all-world running back. Okay, we already talked about this at length. Led the NFL in rushing this year. He's a monster. 66 carries last 2 games. So he also led the NFL in carries this year. So you got some tread on those tires. All right. Ryan Tannehill, NFL's leading passer, but again, 8 of 15 for 72 yards against the New England Patriots. All right. Titans rank 26th against tight ends. They have the 31st ranked red zone defense.
Yes.
You're going up against the Ravens offense that's 2nd in yards, 1st in points. 4th ranked defense. Good luck.
And they're top 5 in the red zone offensively.
They're second. They're second to the Titans in red zone offense. Good luck.
See, there's some interesting numbers I looked at. You know, the Tennessee Titans, for having the leading rusher in the league, they're 30th in time of possession. 30th. It seems odd to me.
Considering how well they run the ball.
Considering, you have the league's leading rusher and you are 30th in time of possession. To delve into a little bit more, they're 3rd in rushing overall, which is basically mainly just Derrick Henry with a little bit of Tannehill sprinkled in here. Because he's 3rd on their team in rushing, and he's only been starting since week 7. Now, they average more yards passing on the road than they have at home, which lends to me that they kind of is by about 20 to 25 yard margin in a difference. So they lean a little bit more pass-wise than you normally would see a road team, which is odd as well. They average almost 200 yards rushing their last 3 games. That includes the 2 games you mentioned in the game before. Almost 200 yards rushing the last 3 games. So obviously number 1 for the Ravens defense. Stop Derrick Henry. Tannehill's been sacked 32 times. 32 times. He's only been starting since week 7, folks. So that's 10 regular season games, 32 sacks. Mariota before him in those 6 games was sacked 25 times.
They've been sacked the 3rd most times in the NFL, but they have the highest percentage of dropbacks that result in the sack.
So, a little tidbit for our blitz-happy defense, the Ravens, and Don Wink Martindale, who is not going to let up blitzing. He is not. You stop the run and we get up on a lead, we are going to blitz Tannehill until we blitz him the hell out of Baltimore. Game's going to come down to stopping Derrick Henry. Because you can, let's not say stop, contain him, bottle him up a little bit. Don't let him get that big 60-yard run. Because that helps him pad some stats. If you slow him down, you take away their best secondary option, which is that play-action pass to hit Brown on the outside or Corey Davis on the outside and hit that big play down the field, which makes Tannehill that much more dangerous because he does have a good arm. He's got a big arm. You can throw the ball down the field, but you stop him, you take away that play-action pass, then he's got to really march down the field, consistently throwing the ball. Down after down after down against that blitz, against that secondary, which is just chomping at the bit to take a pick 6, a big interception, strip sack fumble, which Judon has been lucky enough to get a few times this year. So I like our chances going up against their offense.
Well, I'll tell you, The Ravens played the Titans last year.
Yes.
Now, it was a little bit different.
Yeah.
The Titans, and the guy's name escapes me right now, but they signed an all-pro right guard to shore up that offensive line, that rush attack. You know, Derrick Henry's a different running back than he was way back then.
Yes.
Okay, but they held him to his career worst game, 7 carries, 21 yards. Mariota, under center, sacked 11 times.
Yes.
11 times in one game. Ravens won that game 21-0.
Yep.
Different teams.
Very different.
Than last year. But you look at who Tennessee can attack you with through the air. And the number one guy is A.J. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he is a damn good wide receiver. He put that team on his back in the receiving game, in the passing game,
yes,
for the last 6 weeks. 5 of his 8 touchdowns, over 100 yards in 4 of those 6
Very
games.
impressive.
Really impressive young guy. But tell me that he has anything for savvy, all-pro cornerbacks like Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey.
I don't see it. I don't see it.
I don't see it. And you really think that you're going to get Derrick Henry to gash you up and down the field when you have guys like Michael Pierce and Brandon Williams and Pecco and Chris Wormley in the middle of that defensive line?
Jelly.
Again, good luck.
That's where the key is. Those defensive tackles can disrupt their whole running game by just getting that push right through the middle. It throws everything else off. They like to get that outside zone. So they like to get that off tackle, that little bit outside run going, which if we got our guys, our beef in the middle, operating to peak performance, we blow that up nonstop by getting penetration up the gut, forcing him to bounce it further outside than what he really wants, which allows further time for inside linebackers and safeties to drop down, pursue, and really cut him off before he gets going and get a full head of steam going north and south and not east and west. Because he's an impressive freaking specimen. 6'3", 250
He's
pounds.
a linebacker or a DN
Jesus
playing running back that has 4.4 speed, right? And look, here's the deal. What it's going to come down to is the Ravens are going to key in on Henry, and they're going to stop him in the run game. At least that's what they're going to try to do.
Yes.
Force Tannehill to beat you. And Tannehill, I like Tannehill. I said this last week. I've always liked Ryan Tannehill. But he ain't coming out there beating 2 all-pro corners, a future Hall of Fame safety, and the smartest player on the field in Chuck Clark.
Nope.
Again, like I said, good luck. The Ravens are the far superior team in every single category. This game, could the Titans win? Absolutely. The Titans could. The Titans could win. Again, like I said earlier, any given Sunday, or in this case, any given Saturday, the Titans could win. They won't win. I'm going to do the predictions now. I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be a barn burner. Lamar Jackson's going to go off. He's going to rush for 70, 80 yards. He's going to throw for about 250, 3 to 4 touchdowns. Ravens are going to win this game 45-17. RG3 is going to get into this game in the fourth quarter. That field goal is coming with RG3 in the game because the Ravens are scoring on almost every possession when Lamar's in the game.
Ooh-wee. I can tell you this. I'll be good in sauce because there will be a lot of touchdowns scored. And I look forward to relaxing during the end of a playoff game for the first time in forever. So Ravens are going to score at least 40. I'm saying 42 points. Titans, I'll give you 10.
40? I thought mine was a blowout. 42-10.
I'll give you 10. And the only reason you're getting 10 is because you're getting a garbage touchdown at the end of the game. That's the only way that's happening, because I think with Lamar and this passing game, because they're so focused on how we stop Lamar from running, how do we stop the running game? Lamar is going to blitz that Dean Pease defense with these tight ends all day long, even regardless if Mark Andrews' ankle is completely healthy. I still like Hayden Hurst and Nick Boyle running wild through that secondary because it happened to Dean Pease defenses when he was here in Baltimore all the time. So look for big time plays. I'm calling at least 2 50-yard touchdown plays by the Ravens offense this coming Saturday night. It's going to be a hell of a game to watch, Baltimore, and I can't wait till Saturday night's here.
Look, the Titans are the story of the NFL right now. They knocked off a dynasty in the New England Patriots, and it's a feel-good story. But they have one player. The Ravens have 12. All right, it's. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
The numbers don't add up.
It just doesn't. The way the Titans win this game is they play their best game of the year. The Ravens play their worst game of the year and turn the ball over at least 3 times.
And it would still be close.
And it would still be close. It's not gonna be close. Ravens run away with it. Get to that AFC Championship game, probably against the Chiefs. I'm hoping the Texans, but probably against the Chiefs, and we'll talk about that next week.
Yes,
the Ravens going to one win away after this week
AFC Championship
from getting to a Super Bowl. Until then, thanks for tuning into the Football Frenzy. I'm Paul Valley. This is Adam Rothgeb. We'll see you next week when we talk about the Ravens playing in the AFC Championship.
Take it easy, boys and girls.